I'm Ian Henry with T-Birds General Manager Russ Farwell. This is the third episode of Top Shelf with Russ Farwell. Today we're going to talk to Russ about Conner Roulette. Conner was our second-round Bantam pick in the most recent Bantam Draft. Russ, thanks for taking some time to do this series and talk with us about our Bantam Picks. What did you like about Conner, and what led him to be a second-round pick by us?
Well, what the thing that jumps out with this guy is he's high end. He's a real playmaker and loves to score and sees the ice and really comes to you. So, you know, that you can't see him play without being really impressed by his high skill level. And there's some things he would have to do, you know, growing, and they're young kids when you pick them, but could be a top player. And we're excited to get him because you can't play without having some offense, and he's one of those guys that does it. So yeah, Mark really liked him and watched him all year, so coming in when we went to the Manitoba thing, we were hoping you know, to see him, and they show well. He did, and we were a little surprised that he was there at that point. But that's the way a draft always works.
So you mentioned Mark Romas, our director of scouting, saw him a bunch. In that process of watching Conner, does Mark talk to him after games or have any interaction with him other than watching him play, like an interview process or a meet the family or anything like that?
Well, all those things, really. The guys do a real good job. Our scouting staff does a good job of backgrounding on the players in their area. So Mark knows the Manitoba. He's well known there. He's been around. So yeah, he bumped in. He talked to the family. He interviewed the boy. And this guy's a unique case. His older brother was a real good friend of Keegan Kolsar's. So he knows a little bit about us, and we knew a little bit about you know, about them. So I think that on that front, that's all good, and you get to know a little bit about a kid. And this guy loves to play. He makes plays all the time. He's a real good offensive player, and so that's always a good thing to add to your team.
When Mark or the other scouts are meeting and backgrounding and on the players that make our list, how often and how much emphasis is put on the WHL scholarship program, which for viewers that don't know, every year a player plays in the WHL, they get a year of post-secondary college of their choice paid for. So that's obviously a big aspect of the recruiting process. Is that how do we use that?
Well, how do we make them aware of it is probably the league presents at each one of those year-end tournaments, and they go in and present the full, you know, this is what it is, this is how it's administered, this is how you use it, and then they get a chance to ask questions, and they present both to parents and players. So generally the kids have a pretty good idea, and then we would, you know, fill in questions and stuff afterwards. But yeah, it's a pretty established program. There's so many of those players that play on the Western Canadian universities now that are funded by the Western Hockey League, and it's it's the biggest scholarship program, I think, in Western Canada, private one. So it's a real good program, and guys have gone on and done very well, like Smitty did for us, and the guys go on and then go to school if they don't get a chance. So it's a good program, and I think that is part of the most, you know, a real attractive part of coming to the league.
Conner obviously put up a lot of points in Winnipeg. He broke Jonathan Taves' record for most points in a season over the course of the Bantam season. That's obviously a good thing, but sometimes when you're watching players, you're looking for something more than stats. How does he play, Conner play away from the puck or without the puck?
Yeah, and he's one of those guys, you're not judging him. You know, he's got the puck when he's out there all the time. You don't win the scoring. You know, the thing about winning a scoring race always, and the thing that I always have respect for, is that not only you got to have skill to do it, but you got to show up every night. You got to get those easy points. You got to get the hard points. You can't win the scoring without being a real consistent guy. And those guys have a nose for scoring, and so yeah, you judge. Sometimes you think, boy, that guy's never going to be able to check good enough, or he's got some real deficiencies. That's not the case here. He wants to be a player. He'll learn the game, and coaches understand it too. Those guys check enough to get by and contribute what they do. Some guys have to be a little more proficient there. Everyone has to play to a certain level, and everyone has to come back. But we didn't draft this guy to be a checker, and he is what he is. He makes plays. I think his vision is excellent. You love the enthusiasm he has when he gets the puck heading into the end, and a real unselfish guy. I didn't see him. He's not a guy who scores because he takes every shot. He moves the puck to the open guys. He loves to make that play across the net and set other guys up. And I thought he was a real good offensive player. So.
Is he the type of player that could come in and contribute as a 16-year-old in a couple seasons?
Well, it's going to be an interesting. Yeah, he is, but it's going to be interesting because all three of these guys could play at 16, in my opinion. The guys we've talked about in the first couple sessions here, and it's going to be interesting, and we have quite a few guys graduating, so it might work out that way. We've had that many before, but it's you got to be really careful because they have to play enough. But he is a good enough player that he'll be challenging to do that.
Thanks for joining us on this third episode, Russ. We'll have future episodes coming up where we'll talk to Russ about the remaining 6 Bantam picks that we picked this year. Thanks for joining us, Steelers fans.